There's a genuinely funny side to this whole spiritual journey thing. Folks show up to me saying, "Brasber, quote, Friastor series." Yet right after, they toss in, "Meix quote Boissoin." I gaze at them and have to stifle a chuckle, not to belittle their struggle, mind you, but because they miss the grand universal punchline they've stumbled upon. They've grasped that they're the full expanse of existence unfolding, and yet here they are, griping about scoring a companion for the weekend. It's akin to a ripple in the sea awakening to its oceanic essence, only to fret over pairing up with another ripple for the long haul. But here's the truth I'll share with you. That isolation, that feeling of stepping back from the typical dance of relationships, it's not some flaw in the design. It's baked in, intentional. And when you get why, you'll realize what seems like a flaw is really an invitation to something way more captivating than the pursuits you abandoned. So let's dive into true affection, genuine love, and explain why those who have glimpsed enlightenment can't stomach the standard romantic routine anymore. First off, grasp this. What folks label as love isn't it at all. It's an exchange, a swap meet, two restless spirits negotiating shadows. See? Society drilled a bizarre tale into us about affection. We're led to believe there's a missing part of us floating around somewhere, that we're fractured, lacking, not enough on our own. Hook up with that perfect match, that absent segment, and boom, we're finally intact. What a brilliant tall tale that is. And like the best stories, hordes swallow it whole, no questions asked. Thus, we spend our days hunting for wholeness. We primp and preen. We memorize the ideal lines. We rehearse our grins before the glass. All the time, we're petrified, utterly scared, that nobody picks us, that we'll end up discarded like forgotten stock. That's the so-called courtship in our society. A pair of souls, both sure of their own gaps, both clinging desperately for the other to plug the hole, and temporarily, it clicks. The rush of it all, the heat, the restless evenings, the endless thoughts of that person. We dub it tumbling into love. But pay attention to tumbling. Like affection's a trap door you trip through, something that overtakes you instead of a choice you embrace. And what powers this tumble? Not affection, friends, not even close, but craving. Stark, frantic craving. The urge to flee the nightmare of solitude with our own thoughts. The drive to confirm we count, that we're real, that somebody deems us deserving of notice. On top, it's all poetic, the notes of longing, the bold vows, the sweeping moves. But below, it's merely two folks clutching each other like buoys amid a perceived flood. Now, this is where things turn fascinating. Even a slight stirring of awareness lets you pierce the veil of this charade. You spot that what you deemed love was largely terror in fancier attire. You notice how your fervor was mostly panic over isolation, how your loyalty was just haggling. I'll shapeshift to fit your dreams if you morph into mine. I'll ease your dread if you calm my own. And after that insight hits, after you truly behold it, there's no undoing the clarity. It's comparable to viewing an illusionist's feat once the secret's spilled. Sure, you might still respect the craft, enjoy the show, but the deception's lost on you. The creature was tucked in the prop from the start. That's why the enlightened struggle so with traditional romance. Not from turning aloof or numb, far from it, but because they can't join the shared trance that masquerades as courtship. They've spotted the strings propping the scenery. They understand the ballad's glorified desperation under starry glow. They perceive the full spectacle for its essence, a poignant doomed play where two flawed beings dodge confronting their inner voids. Yet here's the revelation. Upon awakening, you uncover something remarkable. You're not vacant whatsoever. That abyss you dreaded, that crushing solitude you raced from, it was never actual. Just a narrative you spun for yourself, one so persuasive you built your whole existence to sidestep it. In reality, you're no partial soul awaiting assembly. You're no shard from some primal shatter. You're the entirety. You're the cosmos beholding itself via this unique form known as you. You're as fulfilled in this instant as you'll ever get. The notion that another must complete you is like a swell believing it requires a fellow swell to turn liquid. It's liquid already. It always has been. And once you truly grasp this idea, once it sinks deep into your core, a profound change occurs. That frantic craving that once pushed you to latch onto others starts to fade away. You quit eyeing every crowd for possible rescuers. You cease evaluating each encounter based on if it could deliver the wholeness you're after, since you're no longer chasing wholeness. You possess it fully already. On paper, this concept feels inspiring, and in truth, it often is. There's an immense liberation in not relying on people to affirm your worth. Yet, there's a cost attached. The cost is straightforward. You can't engage in the familiar routine anymore. You can't act as if the scripted rituals of traditional dating hold genuine meaning. You're unable to pretend to get carried off when you perceive so sharply how the carrying is staged. That's precisely when isolation creeps in. Not the isolation of solitude in body, that's straightforward. You could spend hours in your own company and remain utterly at peace. No, this is another form of isolation entirely. It's the solitude of piercing the veil on a pursuit that others remain immersed in. It's akin to being the sole grown-up amid a kid's celebration. The youngsters are thoroughly enjoying themselves. They're utterly lost in their play. Yet you can't participate, not due to disinterest, but because you can no longer convince yourself the play is authentic. You encounter a person, they're appealing, engaging, and it seems they take a shine to you. Back in earlier times, this would mark the launch of the tale. The narrative of chase and triumph, of yearning and satisfaction, of two souls connecting amid the world's expanse. But these days, you foresee the entire arc before it begins. You discern its progression, the starting rush of excitement, the eventual exposure of imperfections, the bargaining over desires, the creeping awareness that neither can provide the other with their true desire, since that desire isn't found externally. Thus, you pause, not from anxiety, but from insight. You won't step into an obvious snare. You won't sip from the tainted vessel knowing its contents. And this reluctance, this refusal to dive into the outdated theatrics, it isolates you. People pick up on it. They detect that you're operating outside the standard playbook, which either unsettles them or piques their interest. But regardless, it fosters separation. One aspect of enlightenment that goes unspoken. It elevates your expectations. Previously, you might have settled for a partner who brought smiles, who desired you, who occupied nights with talk. But now, that's insufficient. You're seeking an alternative, an element beyond the common lexicon of love. You're searching for a person who's also glimpsed beyond the pretense, someone aware of their inherent completeness, someone not aiming to slot you into their incomplete picture. For only then can you connect authentically, not as ideals or rescuers or cures for solitude, but as twin facets of one essence, twin swells that both recognize their sea. Yet here's the challenge. Such individuals are scarce, remarkably so. The majority linger in the conventional narrative. They continue hunting for their matching half. They keep constructing their sense of self via bonds. They treat the pursuit with grave intensity. And you can't fault them. You engaged in it yourself until the moment you didn't, until clarity dawned. Still, the landscape has shrunk dramatically. What was once a broad array of prospects has dwindled to scant few. Where you once could tumble into affection over a grin or cleverness or graceful presence, now more is required. They must be enlightened, or at minimum, stirring toward it. They must grasp your understanding, perceive your vision, and that drastically curtails choices. This explains why numerous spiritually attuned folks end up solitary. Not for lack of capacity to love, but because the former manner of loving no longer fits. They've surpassed it. Like a youngster who's mastered literacy and outgrows illustrated tales, the prior narratives fall flat now. They crave depth, authenticity, and at times, frequently in fact, that authenticity fails to materialize. Seasons pass, acquaintances form, dialogues unfold, sparks ignite, yet none delve profoundly enough. None reach the core of your being. Thus, you stay solitary, not in resentment or hopelessness, but in a serene vigilance, awaiting one who shares your dialect, inhales the same essence, who's journeyed to your realm and comprehends its terrain. There's a noble poise in this solitude, a form of wholeness. You're unwilling to accept anything short of reality. You're not prepared to revert to slumber merely for its ease. You'd prefer to dwell in lucidity, even solo, over bowing to deception amid a crowd. Let's face it, maintaining this path isn't straightforward. Some evenings, the quiet weighs on you like a lead blanket. You start questioning if you've committed a grave error. You observe folks in their everyday partnerships, complete with their routine conflicts and concessions, and ponder if that routine might be simpler if your expectations are excessively high. Perhaps the insight you've acquired has exacted a steep toll, and you're spot on. It has. You've forfeited the capacity to content yourself with deception. You've surrendered the chance to rely on someone else to sidestep your own issues. You've relinquished the solace of ignorance about truths you've uncovered. These losses are tangible, and at times, they seem overwhelmingly burdensome. Yet, here's the key realization. Reversal isn't possible. Even if you desired it, even if you attempted to revert to familiar patterns and feign blindness to what you perceive, it would prove futile. The enlightenment has taken hold. You've sampled authenticity, and after experiencing genuineness, imitations lose their appeal entirely. So, how do you proceed? You endure, you engage with life, you keep evolving, absorbing lessons, and embracing the depth of being alive. You refuse to seal off your emotions. You avoid turning resentful or jaded. You just acknowledge that genuine affection, true connection, now originates from a transformed source, not from scarcity, but from abundance, not from anxiety, but from liberation, not from the frantic grip of two flawed individuals, but from the harmonious encounter of two fulfilled souls. And perhaps it arrives. Perhaps someday you cross paths with another who's traversed a similar journey, who embodies that same depth of awareness, who gazes at you and views not a remedy for their isolation, but a fellow explorer in life's enigmas, a person who doesn't require you to fulfill them, since they're self-sufficient, someone capable of cherishing you not out of necessity, but out of deliberate choice. Because the essence of loving is the purpose itself, not the benefits derived from it. When that occurs, should it occur, it bears no resemblance to conventional infatuation. Absent is the frenzy, the fixation, the frantic hold. In its place emerges an acknowledgement and alignment of peers. Two individuals secure in their own serenity, opting to exchange that tranquility, not from obligation, but from desire, because it's enchanting, because it reflects the autonomy each has unearthed inside. This form of affection doesn't constrain, doesn't claim ownership, doesn't impose expectations. It merely exists, akin to a stream meandering, like avian flight, like solar radiance. Its connection devoid of motives, without bartering, without the hidden trades that taint so many relationships masquerading as love in our society. Still, such bonds are scarce, with no assurance of discovery. You could dedicate your existence to anticipation. You might depart this life without ever encountering another enlightened soul in the profound intimacy you crave. And you have to reconcile with that prospect. You need to embrace solitude if that's the demand of insight, for the alternative is far graver. The alternative means lapsing back into slumber, cramming yourself into outdated attire, and resuming a scripted role. To exploit another or allow exploitation in a shared delusion that this resolves life's core dilemmas. And that's no longer viable. The garb no longer suits. The performance no longer persuades. You've glimpsed beyond the facade and you can't redraw the shroud. Thus, you bear this peculiar boon, this weight of perception. You're vigilant amid a slumbering majority. You penetrate illusions that others treat as reality. Indeed, isolation creeps in occasionally. Indeed, it's challenging. Indeed, you yearn for easier connections with those who comprehend. But you wouldn't exchange it, for you've savored liberty. And liberty, authentic liberty, justifies any sacrifice. The spiritually enlightened struggle to locate partnership. Not because affection has forsaken them, but because they decline to label anything short of veracity as such. They've ceased equating dependency with devotion, craving with fervor, allure with commitment. They've quit the charade where partners serve as mutual diversions from self-confrontation. And by halting, they've unlocked potential for something profoundly authentic, something that might elude them forever or arrive unexpectedly, or perhaps already manifest in unrecognized guises. But regardless of outcomes, they grasp this truth. They are inherently integral, self-contained, unbound. And that awareness, that assurance, surpasses every fabricated liaison imaginable. They'd prefer solitary authenticity over paired fabrication. They'd opt to await eternity for genuineness rather than accept a mere distraction. This is awakening's toll and its reward. You forfeit the immersion in others, but acquire self-discovery in all things. You surrender the ease of reciprocal reliance, but attain independence from reliance altogether. You abandon traditional tales of courtship, but invite boundless potential. Affection unbound by stipulations, affection free of requisites, affection that simply it offers nothing yet yields everything. This kind of love isn't some fleeting sentiment or passion. It's simply how you exist in the universe. And even if you never encounter someone else to share it with, you still possess that love entirely, since it never resided in the other individual to begin with. It lingered within you all along, ready to be uncovered, ready to be embraced, not as an exchange between partners, but as the very foundation of your essence, as your true nature beyond any actions, as the sea itself, rather than a mere ripple on its surface. That's precisely why those who've awakened spiritually struggle to discover love through conventional paths. They've already unearthed it in the deepest sense possible. They've located it inside themselves, and no one, no bond, no affair, no matter how tender, can rival that revelation. All the rest amounts to mere games, charming at times, lovely on occasion, but games all the same. You can savor those games without confusing them for the authentic essence, without staking your core on their results, without losing sight of your fundamental self amid the masks and performances. Sure, you might feel solitary at times. Absolutely, the number of kindred spirits has dwindled. Indeed, it's tougher to connect with those who grasp your perspective. Yet, you're liberated now in ways you never imagined before. Liberated to cherish without dependence. Liberated to bond without grasping. Liberated to express your true self without excuses or facades. And that liberation, that expansive, open liberation, is exactly what you've sought forever. Not through someone else, but deep within your own being, where it's eternally resided, where it forever remains. Indeed. Awaiting your return,